Can I design a survey platform using ChatGPT? Day 2 updates. That's Ken chewing his bone in the background. He didn't get the memo about recording. That's a lie. He probably got it and he opted to ignore it because he only likes to be loud when I'm recording. So enjoy the ambiance. So coming off my high of day 1 going super well and honestly being pretty like easy breezy, lemon squeezy, I was just like shook by the frustration of day 2. So let's talk about day 2. What I did, what I learned, what went wrong, and why I'm now taking a completely different approach to building this dang thing. So one of the first things I learned on day 2 was how to set up like a local Python environment. I feel like people who actually know how to do this, feel free to school me. I'm probably messing up the lingo. I'm doing the best I can. I wanted to be able to test things on my computer without like pushing them to the cloud, because how GitHub works is it saves like every version that you like deploy, that you test, that you run. And I was just getting like really like bogged down in the infinity versions. And I was like, oh, at the end of the day, I want like a clean record of like each iteration of like what was working. And it was just like kind of annoying me. So I was like, yes, let's set up a way to test this locally, push it to the cloud when I'm like happy with the code. So what that looked like was like I had to get GitHub on my computer, I had to get Python on my computer because I had like Python for R and Python for SPSS, but not Python. So I downloaded all the things I needed. I set up my local environment. That took some time, y'all, and it was like really frustrating. It's challenging to do things that you don't fully understand. And I talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but it's like, you know, ChatGPT is being like, and now do this, and now do this, and giving me these long lists. And I'm like, hey, I am lost. Like, I need you to go step by step. And I added in that I always want it to explain to me why I'm doing something. Like, I don't like to do things without any context. And I also want to learn. Like, I'm not just trying to get ChatGPT to build something and I just copy and paste it and like ship it, you know, like I want to learn, I want to understand what's going on. So I changed my approach a little bit where I'm like, hey, like I need you to go like one step at a time. And I want to know like the reason why we're doing every single thing that we're doing moving forward. Was very pleased with that change. Highly recommend making it if you're working with ChatGPT to build something. So I get my local environment set up. There was like so much drama with my like Google Open API key because I want things to go directly to Google Sheets. And like, I don't know why I can't format a JSON file correctly, but every time there was something wrong, then I made apparently the huge mistake of just like pasting it into ChatGPT to get formatted. And it like formatted it and gave it to me. And then later we're talking about, it's like, oh, well, you should never share that with anyone. And I was like, I just shared it with you. Why didn't you tell me that before I shared it with you? So I had to go delete the key, make a new key. It's just like, it's a security risk, right? Like you don't want people to have your open API key for Google Sheets. I guess they could do nefarious things with it. Would have been a helpful warning up front. So, you know, had some, what is it? Like, had a lot of starting and stopping. Finally, the local environment is set up. I can just test things, see how they look on my computer before I like push them live. And I'm like feeling so good, super excited about it. And so the code tweaks that I wanted to make on day 2, I felt like were pretty simple. I wanted to change the color scheme because the default was like orange and white. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like I don't really like the color orange. So I didn't want to use orange. I've been going with like a purple vibe with my new initiatives. I don't know why I'm not really a purple girly. I'm like a navy blue, black, gray girly, but I've been going with like a fun purple vibe. So I just want to like change the color to purple and update like the names of the tabs and how they looked. And like, that was really it. And so I asked ChatGPT to update the code to do that. It gives me the code. I put it in. I'm looking at it. It is purple. But then I noticed the next button doesn't work. One of the things I was most excited to try out with this survey was like a tab feature where like you can preview the tabs, but you can't answer the questions until you've completed the previous tab. So it'd be like about this survey, and you could read the tab and click next and go to the next tab, and then it would be like about you. But if you wanted to preview like the survey questions, you could click that tab, preview the survey questions, but you just couldn't complete them. And there was a little warning that was like, hey, you got to fill out these other sections first. I thought that was fun, a different way of doing surveys rather than just like scrolling all the way down to the bottom and like clicking next, having a little progress bar. You can't go back and change anything. Like, I thought this would be a cool little innovation that I wanted to test out. And here's the thing, this is what changed everything. It doesn't work. Okay, so just so you can see what this looked like and what broke is I had made these like cute little tabs up here, and this one still had like the complete about this survey first, and like questions would pre-fill down here. Complete about you first. Like this has like all the warnings, which was like great. It had changed it to purple. So it's like kind of working, but this was like the thing that broke everything down. When I click next, it didn't go to the next tab. What it did do is now when you click about you, you can see the questions. And then if I click next, it says next. And then, excuse me, while I float around the screen. Then if I click next here, it like runs and I could go to survey use. There would be questions there, right? So it like unlocks the tabs, which is super cool, but it doesn't auto advance, which is like silly. But like if you were a survey user taking it and you clicked next and it didn't go to the next thing, that would be really annoying. And like one option would be like, hey, just leave it. The next button doesn't need to be here. Just have them fill out and then they go to the next tab, or like click at the top to go to the next tab. But look, y'all, I am aiming for dream survey platform, not like, it's okay, it has to work this way survey platform. And we tried a million fixes and workarounds. And as we were like discussing each of them, like you could change these tabs into like buttons, and then the next button would click to loop you up to the button at the top. It was like this whole thing. It could have been fine, but it did make me think back to my Hugging Face app that I built, and just how I love like how quickly the interface updates. Like right now, I need a box to type in my multiple choice questions. If I don't, because it's open-ended, it just disappears. Like I love that functionality. Even here, like depending on like what things I click at the top, I can click give me tips and then they change, right? Like I just love that like quick responsiveness. So didn't feel like figuring out some like weird workaround for this was just gonna like leave me satisfied. And this is when I realized two really important things that I want to share with you if you decide to build with ChatGPT. One, ChatGPT is not always right. I know it says that in a little warning at the bottom, but like it is not always right. And two, even when you're using like the canvas function, I thought the whole purpose of the canvas function of ChatGPT was so that it wouldn't re-edit the whole thing. It would just like change the parts that needed to be fixed. And I was like, oh, for code, that would be so great. No, every single time it regenerated the entire canvas, and it would say like, oh, but I left everything else the same. But like I could manually check and be like, you didn't leave everything else the same. And like now new things are broken. So that was really frustrating with me. And moving forward, I'm gonna have like the base code we start with, and I'm only gonna ask ChatGPT to make specific edits to the code and just like tell them to me in chat. I will implement them. Like I don't want you touching the full code anymore because I don't know what's going on, but like wild things are going on. At some point I was like, this looks so much worse than our first version. Like, and then I'm in the version history going back, and it's just, it was annoying. It was frustrating. I probably should have thought of this from the start, but I didn't. But I'm like, I want a base code to work from. And then for all the edits I want to make, I actually want to manually make the edits myself. And I think that's going to save me a huge headache going forward. I also think it'll be better for clear record keeping. So that's my like pro tip coming from not a pro. The thing about ChatGPT not knowing everything was like the little like, you know, like fight ChatGPT and I had. So what happened was we got in this loop where like this function isn't working, and I would be like, oh, hey, ChatGPT, it's still not working. And every time it wouldn't discuss the problem with me, it wouldn't work it through with me. It would just auto generate new code with like a new option and be like, here's what I did differently instead. And I hated that because I want to know what's going on. And I always want us to discuss and diagnose like why something is broken before we fix it. And it's just like in such a fix it mode. And despite me like telling it this multiple times, every time it wasn't working, it's like, here's a whole new fix, here's a whole new fix, here's a whole new fix. And I was just like, I need you to stop and take a breath. Let's talk about why this isn't working. Because at some point it's like looping. It's like recommending the same things that we've already tried before. And yes, I do look at the code enough to know that we've tried it before. You know, I'm like, we already did this. It didn't work. Why are we doing it again? Oh, you're right. We did already do that, Kirsten. Like, here's another idea we already did again. I just was like, ooh, like we all need to take a breath because this is not working. It seems so simple to me. I'm like, I just want to hit next and go to the next tab. What the heck is going on here? And that was when ChatGPT finally said, you know, Streamlit doesn't support that functionality. Excuse me? Excuse me? Because I didn't even want to use Streamlit. I was perfectly happy over on Gradio and Hugging Face, and I had to move all my stuff over and download all these new things and set up all this stuff. Thank God everything's free at this stage. And I was just like, tell me more. Well, Streamlit doesn't support tabs. And I was like, that's funny because we've been working on tabs for like hours now. And it's true that they're not working, but I was under the impression since we were like actively trying to make them work, somewhere deep inside we must know that they work, right? No, if you want to use tabs, Streamlit is not the way to go. I had to take a deep breath, come back to it. Then I'm on like the discussion forums for Streamlit, trying to figure out how to make tabs work where people can like auto advance tabs as they're filling something out. And you know what? Oh, I freaking love forums like this. It just brings me back to my grad school days when I'm trying to figure out how to make things work in like SPSS or R, and like people are just so freaking smart. People are so smart. They find workarounds. They're so generous in sharing them with other people. I love it. I found like a couple other options that I thought could work. And so I was like, hey, ChatGPT, like what about one of these options? And it's like, oh, great idea, Kirsten. I mean, it's not my idea, but you know, great idea. These will totally work. And so it regenerates the entire code again. Reoccurring error, y'all. This was my bad. This is my bad, but we learn and we grow. We learn and we grow. Before I'm running the code, I'm just like thinking now, like I'm losing some faith in the approach we are taking because this is like simple stuff. We haven't even gotten to like advanced survey logic or like display logic of questions. And I'm like, if this tabs thing is this hard, like what else is not gonna work out? And so I decided to be like, hey, like, can we take a second and like talk about this approach? Cause I'm feeling like a little disappointed and frustrated that like Streamlit doesn't seem to be working out how it was like pitched to me. Like you recommended this as the best thing for my platform and like told me why it was the best. And it doesn't seem like it's the best because after 2 hours of trying to get this like next button to work with the tabs, ChatGPT like was like, hey, actually, I don't think Streamlit allows this. Knowing now what I wanted to do for my survey platform and for my little test survey, it would not recommend Streamlit because it's not going to be able to do the functions that I want it to do. And I was like, hold the phone because you recommended Streamlit. Knowing now, we've been talking about this from the beginning. I was all happy over using Hugging Face and Gradio and had just built a little app over there. You said, hey, Kirsten, for this thing that you're thinking, Streamlit's gonna be better. You gotta move to Streamlit. So I did all this work to move to Streamlit, to set up my little Streamlit environment on my computer, redid the code, all this stuff. I'm like, I'm trying to learn new skills. And now you're telling me it's not right. And this was like when I, again, just had one of those moments where it's like, ChatGPT is not all knowing, right? Like you have to question it. You have to question it. And I felt like I had questioned it a lot. And I was like, I didn't do independent research on Google. A lot of the tech stuff, candidly, is like over my head. It's not written in a way I understand. I know the features that I want to do. I don't know how to translate that into like tech specs. You know what I mean? Like I know the functionality I want, I know the features, I know how I want to look. I don't know how to translate it. I've always had the privilege of like working with incredible tech people before. This is my first time trying to do it by myself. So I really was relying on ChatGPT's analysis. So I was like, okay, let's like pause for a second about how infuriated I'm gonna be to like start from square one on a different platform and like really think this through. These are the most important things for me in this like test survey tool that I am building out, right? I was like, I loved in Gradio that it had like really dynamic UI updates. Like if I clicked other, a box would magically appear for me to like type in the other thing. I just thought that that functionality was like very clean. I really liked that. That's important to me. Survey logic is a non-negotiable. I'm never doing, I don't want to say never. I am so rarely doing a survey that doesn't require survey logic. So like being able to do survey logic, very important to me. The tabs could be negotiable, but I just think it's such an interesting way of looking at surveys that I really want to try it out. So like I kind of wanted to keep the tabs, and I added in that I wanted to be able to do side-by-side questions. This is one of the question type features that has kept me on Qualtrics for so long. It's basically when like you ask something, like you have one line asking about something, like let's say your workout, and then next to it, there's two columns where you provide answers. So you could be like, was it the right length? And you could check an answer. And then like, was it the right difficulty level for what you needed today? And you could check an answer. And I love that side-by-side type question for certain surveys. I think it makes data collection a lot easier for the person taking the survey. And so I re-listed out my like dream features, what I really want it to be able to do. And I felt like ChatGPT like spiraled a little, right? In hindsight, it's because it was realizing like it had gone amiss with Streamlit. And bless my ChatGPT for apologizing so much. I don't know what that says about me as a person, that I apologize a lot. But it was just like, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, we're gonna pick the right thing. This will never happen again, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm not, like I am mad, but like not at ChatGPT. I'm just like frustrated at the situation, y'all. It's like 7:30 p.m. at night. I had ordered PF Chang's for my treat meal and I just want to go downstairs and pick it up, but I'm a hyper fixator. I'm like, I don't even need the apologies. I just want to like know which route to go forward. So we went through a lot of options for things and like talked about water break. It's important to hydrate. I'll do it too. My little love. So it gave me a bunch of new options, and for each option I was like, are you like, let's go step by step. Are we sure I can do this? Are we sure I can do this? Like it made me little like comparison tables to like compare the features. Obviously, like for now, maybe not obviously, for now I want to keep it free. I don't have a budget for this. So we went through everything and we have landed on a new approach. Yay. So what is this new approach, this new magic that I hope to God works to build the survey platform of my dreams? I will still be coding in Python. I will be using React. I will be using FastAPI. I will still be using Google Sheets for storage. That's a personal preference and something that as the scale is like, I probably won't be able to keep, but still gonna use Google Sheets for storage. We'll be using fly.io to host my backend and using Vercel to host my front end. My understanding is that because now we're using a backend and a front end, this makes me like a full stack developer. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. What could you take away from this plan going forward? Because I think that's important. For starters, I would say, God, just like ask a lot of questions. I felt like I had asked a lot of questions the first round, but I could clearly not ask enough. But ask a lot of questions. Really make sure the tool choices make sense for you. Like think of the weirdest thing you're gonna want it to be able to do and be like, okay, but can it handle this? Like I would ask those up front. And the other thing, this is the biggest thing that I'm gonna be taking away from this, is that I want a base code that starts with just like simple infrastructure, getting the general setup that I want, like happening. And then I actually only want line by line suggested edits that I will make manually moving forward, so I can more clearly keep track of how my code is changing and also understand why it's changing in those ways. I think that was like a mistake that I made with my first Hugging Face app, where I was just like, accepted the new code every time out of the gate. Like, okay, that's fine. Okay, new code, new code, new code. And it would tell me what it was changing, but I didn't really get to like see what it was changing because it was just like this long thing of code. And when things broke and I had to really like dig into the code and go line by line and try to figure out what was going on, because yes, a human still needed to do that. ChatGPT could not figure out a number of like the errors and glitches that we were having. Or it could figure out that we were having them, but it couldn't figure out how to fix them. I had to figure out how to fix them. Oh, and I wanted to go back to like the last version of code that worked. I would be looking and comparing them and I'd be like, these two are so different. There's no reason that they need to be so different for like this small color change or just for like this one button functionality feature change. And I think it is just this case where it seems like it's just getting regenerated in whole every time, whether that's a purposeful feature or a mistake. I don't know, but I do know moving forward, I want my base code, and then I just want it to be like, edit this line to say this, because it will do this thing. And I think that's gonna make things a lot easier going forward. So that's my day 2 update, you all. I am still in it to win it. We will see how this keeps going. Thank you so much for keeping up with me. It means a lot. And yeah, let's on to day 3.